When does joy arrive? A group of young people felt life was utterly bland, so they set out together to find joy. In their quest for happiness, they encountered many troubles, sorrows, and pains. Thus, they sought wisdom from Socrates. Where does ultimate joy lie? Why do we seek joy only to find displeasure, which seems to grow incessantly? Socrates replied, "First, help me build a boat." Setting aside their quest for joy, the group found the tools needed for boat building, and after 49 days of hard labor, completed a single log boat. Upon launching it, they invited Socrates to join them in the boat, and together they rowed, sang, and celebrated. Socrates asked, "How do you feel now? Are you happy?" In unison, the young people responded, "Very happy." Socrates explained, "That's what joy is like. It comes from being engaged in a clear purpose and often arrives quite unexpectedly." 2. The more you rush, the slower you go. A young man once ascended a mountain to seek a famous swordsmanship master. He inquired of the master, "How long will it take me to become a sword master if I practice diligently?" "Perhaps 10 years," the master replied. "My father is aging, and I must take care of him. If I practice even more diligently, how long then?" After a moment of silent contemplation, the master answered, "In that case, it might take 30 years. The young man couldn't hide his impatience. "Earlier, you said 10 years. Now it's 30. I will overcome all obstacles to master swordsmanship in the shortest time possible." "Then you will need to stay here for 70 years, the master said with a smile. Commentary. Those who are too eager to achieve results rarely succeed. 3. The Stone and the Brick. Legend has it, as Laozi rode his blue ox through the Hanggu Pass, he encountered an old man over 100 years old with silvery hair. The old man greeted Laozi and said, "It's said that you are learned and talented, sir. I humbly request a few words of wisdom." Proudly, the old man stated, "I'm 106 years old this year. Honestly, since my youth, I've lived a life of ease every day. Those my age have all passed away. They cleared hundreds of acres, owned vast fields and gardens, but ultimately left with nothing. They repaired the Great Wall, but didn't enjoy any glory, built 4 houses, but ended up buried in a desolate graveyard on the outskirts. As for me, I've never farmed or harvested, yet I still ate grains. I never laid bricks, but I've lived in a house that sheltered me from wind and rain. Sir, now can I laugh at their busy, hard lives just because I might die a bit younger?" After listening, Laozi smiled slightly and said, "Please find a brick and a stone and bring them here." Laozi took the brick and the stone, placed them in front of the old man, and asked, "If you had to choose one, which would it be, the brick or the stone?" The old man confidently chose the brick and placed it in front of himself, saying, "I would naturally choose the brick." Laozi smiled and asked the old man, "Why?" The old man pointed at the stone and said, "This stone has no corners or edges. What use is it? But the brick is useful." Laozi then greeted everyone around and asked, "Would you choose the stone or the brick?" Everyone chose the brick over the stone. Laozi turned back to the old man and asked, "Which lasts longer, the stone or the brick?" The old man replied, "Naturally, the stone." Laozi calmly smiled and said, "The stone lasts longer, yet people do not choose it. The brick is short-lived, but people choose it because it's useful or not. The same goes for all things. Though short-lived but useful, everyone chooses and likes not short but long. Though long-lived and of no use, people ignore and naturally forget, thus being long yet short." Upon hearing this, the old man felt extremely ashamed. 4. The Merchant and the Old Fisherman. A merchant once saw an old man sitting at the end of a boat, fishing. Each time the old man caught a fish, he would remove it from the hook and then release it back into the water. Puzzled, the merchant asked, "Why do you release it back into the water instead of taking it home?" The old man replied, "Why would I take it home?" "To eat," the merchant answered. "I only eat 3 fish a day. I don't need more," said the old man. "Well, you could sell them at the market," suggested the merchant. "Sell? Why would I sell these few fish?" the old man asked, perplexed. "If you sell them, you could make some money," the merchant replied. "What do I need that money for?" the old man questioned. "You could use it to buy a boat," the merchant said, finding it hard to understand. "And what would I need a boat for?" The old man remained calm. "So you could comfortably sit on the boat and fish at your leisure," the merchant excitedly answered. "And do you think I'm not comfortable now?" the old man asked. Hearing this, the merchant didn't know how to respond. Sometimes only we can truly know if we are happy. Material wealth and prestige are just for others to see, and they do not necessarily align with our personal fulfillment. 5. The difference between heaven and hell. A warrior once asked a Zen master, "What's the difference between heaven and hell?" The Zen master countered, "Who are you?" "I am a warrior," the man replied. Upon hearing this, the Zen master laughed and remarked, "How can a brute like you deserve an answer?" Infuriated, the warrior drew his sword and aimed it at the Zen master, exclaiming, "I'll show you by taking your life." As the blade came within inches of the Zen master's head, he remained calm and said softly, "This is hell." The warrior, struck by surprise, halted his strike. Realizing the depth of the Zen master's words, he dropped his sword, brought his hands together, bowed, and knelt, saying, "Thank you for your teaching, Master. Please forgive my rudeness." The Zen master smiled and said, "This is heaven." Reflective lesson. Within each individual lies the potential for both good and evil, benevolence and malevolence. Uncontrolled anger can lead one to hell, while harboring good intentions and returning to one's innate nature opens the gates of heaven. Listening to the teachings, being virtuous is an effortless act according to Buddhist teachings. 6. Calmness. During a sweltering day, the grass in the Zen garden had all dried up. "Let's pull out these unsightly weeds," the young monk suggested. "Let's wait for cooler weather," the master responded, waving his hand. In due time. By the mid-autumn festival, the master bought a bag of grass seeds, which the young monk then scattered. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, carrying the seeds away. "Oh no, the wind has blown many seeds away," exclaimed the young monk. "It's all right. The seeds carried by the wind were the weaker ones. They wouldn't have sprouted anyway," the master explained. "Let nature take its course." After scattering the seeds, some birds came and pecked at them. "What a waste! The remaining seeds are being eaten by the birds," the young monk said angrily, stomping his foot. "It's fine. There are plenty of seeds, too many for the birds to eat," the master continued, flipping through a scripture. "Let it be." In the middle of the night, clouds gathered, and soon a heavy rain fell. Early in the morning, the young monk rushed into the meditation room. "Master, this time it's really bad. All the seeds have been washed away by the rain." "Wherever they've been carried, they will sprout," the master said, continuing his meditation without opening his eyes. "Let fate decide." More than a fortnight later, the once bare courtyard was lush with young green sprouts, even in areas they hadn't managed to sow. The young monk clapped his hands in joy. The master nodded. "Let joy prevail." This wise old monk always appeared calm in the face of any situation, but in reality, he deeply understood the profound meanings of life's principles. Why do our hearts often become unsettled, fearful, or even desperate due to external factors? Is it because achievements and accolades cloud our judgment? 7. The sound of ticking. One day, a father accidentally misplaced his wristwatch and frantically searched everywhere for it, but to no avail. Once he stepped out, his child quietly entered the room and quickly found it. The father asked, "How did you find it?" The child replied, "I just sat still and quiet, and after a while, I could hear the faint ticking sound, and that's how I found it." Insight. The more desperately we search for something, the harder it seems to find. Only when we calm down can we hear the sounds within. 8. Avoid dwelling on past glories. It's said that living in the shadow of past glories is the greatest obstacle to future success. Everyone has a past, a time of youthful pride and accomplishment, but after all, that's what it is, a past. However, many people fail to grasp this, choosing instead to let their past define their present life. It's easy to look at others whose pasts may not have seemed as bright as ours, yet find them faring much better in the present. Instead of striving to catch up, there's a tendency to feel unjustly treated. How can someone who was once struggling be doing so well now? While others move forward step by step, some remain stuck in the past, considering themselves wise yet becoming increasingly outpaced and stagnated in life. Those who are caught up in their former glories without willing to let go may find themselves believing they are truly talented, but just not fortunate enough, blaming life for deliberately placing obstacles in their path. This breeds resentment and dissatisfaction, tainting their view of almost everything. Yesterday cannot stay, just as past achievements are just that, past. If one doesn't dwell on the splendor of their past, they won't halt their progress, nor will they harbor dissatisfaction with life. Instead, life can move forward in a beautiful, gratifying way. 9. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In the Analects of Confucius, Wei Ling Gong, there's a story where Tzu Kung asks, "Is there a single word that one can act upon for the entirety of one's life?" Confucius replies, "Perhaps it's consideration. Do not do to others what you would not want done to yourself." To become a more gentle person, you only need to focus on two things. First is the grace of forgiveness. In the face of others' mistakes and shortcomings, we must maintain tolerance and calm, be strict with ourselves, patient with others, not unreasonable and cautious in our actions. Forgiving others is also forgiving oneself. Second is empathetic thinking. Before you act, consider the situation from the other person's perspective. Seek a balance of mutual benefits and employ the most appropriate methods to achieve a win-win situation, making everyone feel comfortable. By following these principles, you can avoid putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, smooth over most relationships, and remain fearless in any situation, always maintaining a warm and elegant demeanor. These individuals are often the ones who advance most rapidly and steadily in their careers. Outside of work, in family life and everyday interactions, they possess the ability to handle conflicts wisely and skillfully, always making others feel like a refreshing spring breeze. 10. The Warrior and the Zen Master. A warrior, holding a fish in his hand, approached the chamber of a revered monk. The warrior proposed a wager, asking, "Let's make a bet. Can the Zen master tell me if the fish in my hand is alive or dead?" The wise monk knew that if he said the fish was dead, the warrior would simply release it to prove him wrong. But if he claimed it was alive, the warrior would likely squeeze it to death immediately. Therefore, the monk replied, "The fish is already dead." The warrior promptly released the fish, laughing, "The Zen master loses. You can see this fish is clearly still alive." With a gentle smile, the monk responded, "Indeed, I have lost." Reflective lesson. Though the monk lost the wager, he saved a life. This act embodies the compassion of spiritual practice, Compassion for all beings, including oneself, carries a profound significance, expanding our hearts and making us more noble, perceptive, and resilient. 11. Footprints in the mud. Newly initiated into monkhood, the young Jiam-chan was recognized by the abbot for his intelligence, diligence, and eagerness to learn. Despite this, he was assigned the role of a begging monk, a task none in the monastery desired. Daily, he faced the harshness of rain and wind, enduring ridicule and scorn from those who saw beggars as less than worthy. Jiam-chan felt deeply angered by this. One night, well past midnight, Jiam-chan hadn't yet slept. Curious, the abbot entered his room to find him lying motionless, a pile of worn-out straw shoes beside his bed. "Why haven't you gone out to beg today, and why keep these ruined shoes?" the abbot inquired. Yawning, Jiam-chan replied, "Others might wear a pair of straw shoes for a year without trouble, but in just over a year, I've worn through so many. Should I not save the monastery some expense?" Understanding his point, the abbot smiled and suggested they inspect the monastery's front path, especially muddy after recent rains. "Do you wish to be an ordinary monk or one profound in Buddhist teachings?" the abbot asked. "Of course. I want to be renowned for my understanding of Buddhism, but how can I achieve that when looked down upon as a begging monk?" Jiam-chan responded. "Did you walk this path yesterday?" the abbot queried. "Yes," Jiam-chan confirmed. "Can you find your footsteps from yesterday?" Confused, Jiam-chan admitted, "The path was hard, and even then, how could I find my footsteps?" Smiling, the abbot said, "What about today? If we walk this path, could you find your footsteps?" "Certainly," Jiam-chan replied. Pleased, the abbot gently tapped Jiam-chan's shoulder, enlightening him. "Only in mud do footsteps linger. Many in this world live unremarkable lives, untouched by hardship, like feet on a hard, smooth path leaving no trace. Those who brave the storms and struggles, like walking through mud, leave deep, lasting marks. The farther they go, the more their value is proven." Ashamed, Jiam-chan bowed his head. From then on, his determined steps left deep impressions on the muddy path before the monastery, marking his journey throughout the land. It's through navigating the muddiness of life that one leaves a significant mark. Number 12. The farmer who bought land. A farmer once sought to purchase a plot of land, hearing that someone in the local area was looking to sell. Residents informed the farmer, "Pay 100 silver coins, and from sunrise until the sun sets behind the mountains, the land you can encircle by walking in that time will be yours. However, if you fail to return to your starting point, you won't own a single inch of it." The farmer thought, "I labor hard every day, traversing countless paths. Surely I can walk a large circle and secure a great deal of land. This seems like an opportunity too good to pass up." So he agreed to the terms. As soon as the sun peeked over the horizon, the farmer set off, taking large strides. By noon, he hadn't stopped for a moment, pressing forward relentlessly. He thought, "Enduring today's hardship will reward me with a vast piece of land." Thus he pushed himself even further. Only when the sun began to set did he hurriedly turn back, realizing he wouldn't get any land if he didn't return in time. So he chose a shortcut to save time. But the sun quickly dipped below the horizon, and in his rush, just 2 steps away from his starting point, he collapsed from exhaustion, achieving nothing. Despite paying the price, he gained no land. The lesson to ponder: human desire is like a gaping pit that can never be leaped over, for greed is bottomless and can never be fully satisfied. The story of the farmer, as taught by a Zen master, reminds us that those consumed by greed, always seeking wealth and material comfort without willing to pay the price or put forth their effort, will ultimately be blinded by their desires and meet an unfortunate end.
Hey everyone, your comments truly matter, offering insights and motivation to others and uplifting our creative team at Lighthouse of Wisdom channel. Sharing your thoughts and experiences enriches our community. So, let's get the conversation started below and help illuminate our path with your wisdom.
13. Maturity. What is maturity? Is it graying hair, wrinkled skin, or crow's feet by the eyes? No, it's none of these. Physical changes are merely signs of time passing, but true maturity is invisible to the eye. Perhaps maturity is like a ripe plum, soft, juicy, and sweet to the taste. We often assume that with age comes wisdom, but that's not necessarily the case. Maturity is more about going through life's seasons, finding calm after unmet desires, smiling through pain and tears, and aspiring to rise after every downfall. True maturity has never been about age or time. It lies in the tranquility and balance of the inner self. It's like the moon shining brightly after the clouds part, a dragon soaring through stormy skies, becoming one with the earth and sky, akin to a fish that swims upstream with ease. During the Northern Song dynasty, there was a great poet named Su Shi, who, despite the many tribulations of life, maintained his composure and freedom of spirit, finding joy in hardship. Su Shi was honest and straightforward, demoted for criticizing the salt tax policy of Wang Anshi, leading to his relocation to Huangzhou. In Huangzhou, living in a simple riverside room without money or food, Su Shi had to till the fields himself. Yet, faced with the direst circumstances, Su Shi never lost his dignity. He never let poverty endanger his spirit. He lived joyfully in his modest riverside home. In Huangzhou, Su Shi led a simple life, engaging in reading, poetry, painting, calligraphy, farming, and gardening, finding contentment in rural simplicity. Despite the prolonged exile, his love for this remote land grew, dedicating his time to poetry and painting. Su Shi's character has left future generations in awe. 14. Going with the flow. Water, an element without a fixed shape, flows by following the path of least resistance, adapting to its surroundings. Yet, as ancient wisdom says, even mountains cannot block its path, and water can wear away stone. This belief in the power of adaptability and harmony with one's environment is encapsulated in the philosophy of non-contention. Non-contention does not equate to a lack of ambition. Rather, it reflects a respect for the natural order, a commitment to not disrupting the balance of all things, and a wisdom to not lose sight of the greater for the lesser. It's about not getting lost in the ceaseless changes of life. In taking action, one should not be hasty, embodying the proverb, haste makes waste. Before undertaking any endeavor, thoughtful consideration, planning, and meticulous execution step by step is advised. This approach, much like water's gentle flow, doesn't rush or force its way forward. Moreover, just as small streams can grow into mighty rivers over time, achieving greatness requires humility and the cultivation of a non-contentious attitude. Only through embracing these values can one hope to rise and succeed. 15. Big and small. Do you truly know yourself? A friend once shared with me a story about visiting a relative, an aunt, who throughout her life had never worn a pair of shoes that actually fit her feet. She always wore shoes that were too large. When asked why, she said, "Big or small, shoes cost the same, so why not get the bigger ones?" Every time I recount this tale, many burst into laughter. However, in life, we often encounter many such aunts. For example, some who are not writers by profession produce voluminous and profound works. Some who are not artists create massive and extraordinary paintings time and again. Many people relentlessly chase grand ambitions, often driven by greed, much like buying oversized shoes forgetting their actual size. Whether purchasing shoes or pursuing goals, choosing what fits you best is most crucial. Moderation and knowing your limits is the smartest approach. 16. The birdcage. John and George made a bet. John claimed that if he gifted George a birdcage and hung it in a prominent place in George's room, George would end up buying a bird. George was skeptical, arguing that keeping birds was too much trouble and he would never buy one. John went out and bought a beautiful birdcage for George, hanging it in the most conspicuous spot in George's living room. As a result, whenever someone entered George's living room, they would ask, "George, when did your bird die?" "I've never had a bird," George would reply. "Then why do you have that birdcage?" Their mutual friends were puzzled by George's response, and many felt it reflected a lack of warmth or care for animals on his part. Ultimately, George found it simpler to just buy a bird and place it in the beautiful cage than to keep explaining to everyone why he had an empty bird cage. It's a common human trait to set up empty cages in our minds, then struggle with what to fill them with. 17. Someone. Kitagaki, the governor of Kyoto Prefecture, made a visit to Tofuku Temple to see Keichu, the head priest of the temple. A disciple of Keichu informed him, "Governor Kitagaki of Kyoto wishes to see you." "I don't know any governor," the head priest replied. The disciple relayed to Kitagaki, "My teacher asks you to leave as he does not recognize any governor." Understanding the situation, Kitagaki said, "If that's the case, please tell your teacher that Kitagaki wishes to meet him. Let me try again." This time, the head priest personally welcomed him. "Oh, is that Kitagaki? Please, come in." Commentary. Fame, position, success, and wealth often tend to inflate one's ego. Consequently, people may lose their way, like someone who cannot find their way home. 18. Remembering and forgetting. Ali, a renowned Arab writer, once went on a trip with his two friends, Gilbert and Martha. As they were crossing a canyon, Martha slipped and fell. Fortunately, Gilbert quickly grabbed her and pulled her up, saving her life. Grateful for this act, Martha carved on a nearby rock, "On this day, month, and year, Gilbert saved Martha's life." A few days later, while at a riverbank, Gilbert and Martha got into a petty argument, and Gilbert, in a moment of anger, slapped Martha. Martha ran to a sandy bank and wrote, "On this day, month, and year, Gilbert slapped Martha." After they returned from their trip, Ali, curious, asked Martha, "Why did you carve Gilbert saving you on the rock, but wrote him slapping you on the sand?" Martha replied, "I will forever be grateful for him saving me, but for him slapping me, I knew the words in the sand would quickly wash away." By remembering the kindness others have shown us and letting go of our grievances against them, we can truly soar freely in life. 19. Forgive to lighten your heart. A disciple asked, "Master, I'm suffering because of my cruel parents, my spouse and children abandoning me, siblings betraying me, and friends undermining me. What should I do to let go of this resentment and hatred?" The master replied, "Sit in silence, calm your mind, and forgive them all." A few days later, the disciple returned. "Master, I have forgiven them. I feel so much lighter. It's as if it's all resolved." The master responded, "It's not over yet. Go back, calm your mind, open your heart, and love them." The disciple, scratching his head, said, "Forgiveness was hard enough, and now to love them. But all right, I'll do it." A week later, the disciple came back, visibly happier, sharing with the master that he had managed to love those who had once treated him poorly. The master nodded approvingly and said, "Good. Now go back, calm your mind, and be grateful to them. Without them playing those roles, you wouldn't have had the opportunity to evolve spiritually like this." When the disciple returned the next time, confident he had completed his lessons, he excitedly reported that he was grateful to everyone because they taught him how to forgive. The master smiled. "Then go back and calm your mind again. They simply played their roles. What fault of theirs is it that you have to forgive or not forgive?" 20. The miraculous medicine of hope. A blind musician slowly felt his way forward, playing his instrument for a living. He carried with him a prescription for a mythical medicine that could restore his sight, a treasure given to him by a sage who had practiced for many years. The condition was that he must break 1,000 strings on his instrument to regain his vision, not one string less. After 53 years, the musician finally broke the 1,000th string. He handed the mythical prescription to a person with clear sight. The sighted person took the prescription, looked at it, and said, "This is just a blank piece of paper. It doesn't have a single word written on it." Tears welled up in the blind musician's eyes as he finally understood the true meaning behind the 1,000 strings set by the sage. It was all about hope. He had strived to play his instrument, persevering for 53 years. The blind musician then passed the prescription to another blind musician, saying, "This contains a prescription that can cure your eyes, but you must break 1,000 strings to be able to open this piece of paper." The other musician joyfully accepted the mythical prescription. 21. Reality shifts with perception. Joy and sorrow are self-determined. Life is fundamentally ours to live, and ultimately, how we live, it is our own choice. No one can prevent you from feeling content, nor can anyone stop you from experiencing freedom. Your happiness is unrestricted by others. There's a profound saying in Buddhism that essentially means, "Seek not outside yourself," or outside the mind. There are no laws. Therefore, joy, freedom, and happiness all reside within the mind. In life, there are times when we find ourselves in situations out of our control, forced to do things we might not wish for. But who can limit what goes on inside your mind? Only you have the power to determine your inner state. Some individuals can find happiness regardless of their circumstances, while others struggle. This illustrates that peace of mind brings tranquility to all aspects of life. Even in unfavorable conditions, one can remain cheerful and relaxed without the need to seek an alternative path. There are those who never feel satisfied, always chasing after desires and competing tirelessly, only to find their goals growing increasingly distant. Such people may achieve great success, but their joy is limited. All feelings of happiness or sadness are determined by ourselves, not by external circumstances. For instance, a woman who does not covet jewels and riches will not be swayed, even if treasures were piled high in front of her. A poor scholar who prefers the company of thousands of books to millions of diamonds, or someone content with a simple rural life, will not envy scholars, fame, or high official positions. The more serene life is, the more radiant the inner self becomes. True peace does not need to be displayed outwardly. Inner calm is the ultimate peace. Happiness is the tranquility of the body and the serenity of the soul. Physical well-being and beauty are the worldly aspects of happiness, while a calm and peaceful spirit represents the ultimate blissful sanctuary. 22. The unseen doesn't mean non-existent. A young monk asked his master, "Master, how can I believe in the paradise that people often speak of if I cannot see it?" The old monk led the young monk into a dark room and said, "There's a hammer in the corner." Despite straining his eyes open or squinting, The young monk couldn't make out his fingers in front of his face, let alone a hammer. He had no choice but to tell his master that he saw nothing. Then the old monk lit a candle, illuminating the room, and indeed, there was a hammer in the corner. He said to his disciple, "Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right?" At that moment, the young monk expressed his amazement, his long-held question finally answered. A teacher dotted the blackboard with white chalk and then asked the students, "What do you see?" All 50 students in the class unanimously answered, "A white dot." The teacher replied, "That's not correct." Surprised, the students insisted, "But it clearly is a white dot." One student, feeling bold, approached the blackboard to take a closer look at what exactly the teacher had marked. After examining it from all angles multiple times, the student confidently stated, "Sir, there's no mistake. That is indeed a white dot." The teacher then asked, "You all have 50 pairs of eyes, and all you see is a white dot." Another student wondered, "Are you asking us to use our imagination?" The teacher clarified, "I'm not teaching literature here, I'm asking what you actually see." "The reality is a white dot," the students chorused. "Don't you see the blackboard behind the dot and the wall behind the blackboard?" the teacher questioned. At that moment, the students had an epiphany. They had only seen the white dot on the blackboard, overlooking the blackboard itself and the wall behind it. Isn't this a common mistake we make in life? We fall into this error due to habitual thinking, allowing time to narrow our vision. Fixed thinking only lets us see the sparkling star, forgetting the sky and vast universe behind it. 23. Don't try to outsmart others. Many people have the bad habit of interrupting others before they have finished their sentences, believing themselves to be smarter or more understanding. Imagine this scenario. A group of friends gathers to listen to one among them enthusiastically share an intriguing story. Everyone is engrossed and on the edge of their seats when suddenly, an interloper without any regard for the flow of conversation hijacks the mic and blurts out the story's ending. The result is a deflated interest for the listeners and diminished joy for the storyteller. Such behavior rarely endears the interrupter to anyone. The book Dialogue on the Root of Words suggests to speak 10 sentences, 9 of which are correct, may not be surprising, but to utter even one incorrect sentence can lead to a multitude of errors. It's like a soccer goalkeeper who might save 9 out of 10 shots, but is vilified for the one goal that gets passed. Understanding something does not necessarily mean you have to express it. If thoughts in your mind seem inappropriate, it's often better to keep them to yourself. Sometimes choosing not to speak can prevent misunderstandings and loss of favor. Consider a young man who secretly adores a woman but is too shy to confess his feelings. Imagine his shock and delight when she approaches him to declare, "I like you." Overwhelmed, he starts to respond, "You're a wonderful person." But before he can finish, she interrupts, "Okay, I get it. You don't need to say anything more." He stammers, I, but she coldly turns away, adding, "No need to say more. Goodbye." He wanted to confess his feelings in return, but his nervousness and her haste to interrupt sealed their fates to misunderstanding. Many such bittersweet or even ludicrous misunderstandings arise from the inability to patiently listen to someone else. Those who refrain from interrupting not only show humility, but also avoid presuming to know others' thoughts. By not interrupting, we adhere to one of the most basic social etiquettes and display the highest form of personal cultivation. 24. The miracle seed. During a hot summer, a large patch of grass in the temple courtyard withered away, looking quite unsightly. The young monk noticed this and suggested to his master, "Master, perhaps we should scatter some seeds here." The master replied, "Don't rush, let's wait for the right time." When they finally had the seeds, the master told the young monk to plant them. Unexpectedly, a gust of wind blew away many of the freshly scattered seeds. The young monk quickly informed his master, "Master, many of the seeds have been blown away by the wind." The master calmly responded, "It's all right. The seeds that were blown away were infertile and wouldn't have sprouted anyway. Let nature take its course." After scattering all the seeds, several birds came down to the plot, searching for food. The young monk tried to scare them away and then reported to his master, "Master, the birds have eaten the seeds." The master leisurely replied, "Don't worry. There are plenty of seeds left. They won't be able to eat them all. Let fate decide." In the middle of the night, a heavy storm arrived. The young monk, distressed, ran to his master's room. "This time it's really over. All the seeds have been washed away by the rain." The master answered, "If they've been washed away, so be it. Wherever they've gone, they will sprout. Leave it to destiny." After a few days, many green sprouts appeared on the barren land, even in places where seeds were not initially scattered. The young monk was overjoyed. "Master, look, the seeds have all sprouted." The master remained calm and stated, "It was meant to be. Rejoice in it." There are also people who claim to have a good relationship with you, coming to you for favors, even bringing their relatives when in need. Reluctantly, you agree, only to find they take advantage of you, turning you into a tool for their benefit. They boast about their close relationship with you, claiming many things can be solved easily without cost. But each time you help, it carries an unspoken burden. Nam was such a person. When I was in charge of the sales department, he bought a car and asked for my help. I couldn't refuse. But soon after, he brought relatives, colleagues, and even acquaintances, all demanding deals under the guise of our relationship, making it awkward for me to refuse. Ironically, Nam didn't see the inconvenience he caused, even bragging that he helped my business and expecting me to thank him with a meal. I was utterly speechless. Eventually, Nam brought a friend to buy a car, and I couldn't meet his unreasonable demands. From then on, our relationship soured as my hospitality inadvertently destroyed our friendship, with years of goodwill gradually fading away. 25. The Art of Archery. A young man named Chang Duong sought to learn archery and heard that the world's greatest archery master, Du Long Tu Chu, was living deep in the mountains. Everyone knew of Du Long Tu Chu's fame, though he was known to have a peculiar temperament. Countless fascinating stories circulated about him. But when Chang Duong inquired about actually finding Du Long Tu Chu, no one could provide a clear answer, as the stories were all hearsay. Determined, Chang Duong prepared his gear and set off into the deep mountains. After more than a year of searching without any sign of Du Long Tu Chu, Chang Duong wandered through the forest, looking wild with disheveled hair and torn clothes. However, he didn't lose hope and continued his quest. "Stop! Don't move!" a voice echoed suddenly. Startled, Chang Duong was shocked to encounter another person after over a year. He saw an old, dirt-covered man aiming a large bow at him, an arrow pointed directly at him. "I've run into bandits," Chang Duong thought. Then, a whoosh sound as an arrow flew past his ear, and a leopard fell from above, right behind him. Chang Duong realized the old man was not a bandit but his savior. He hurriedly thanked the man. "Thank you for saving my life." "Save you? When did I save you?" the old man dismissed, explaining he shot the leopard to use its skin for a cushion, not to save him. Chang Duong admired the precision with which the arrow hit the leopard between its eyes, thinking this must indeed be Du Long Tu Chu. "You must be Du Long Tu Chu, the greatest archer in the world. I have been searching for you for over a year. Please take me as your disciple," he said. The old man replied, I am not the greatest master, nor do I wish to teach you. However, I will tell you a story." He recounted a tale of king so hunting by Von Mong Lake, unable to decide which animal to shoot among many, and thus missing all. The moral being that focus is essential in archery. Having learned the lesson, Chong Duong bid the old man farewell, built a hut, and dedicated himself to archery. 3 years later, he became a master archer, focusing solely on his target, hitting 100 shots out of 100. 26. The Beggar Elder. One day, an elderly beggar stood outside a bustling pastry shop. His clothes were tattered and torn, his hair unkempt, and an unpleasant odor emanated from him. Customers nearby held their noses, frowned, and showed clear disdain for the man. Seeing this, a store employee loudly exclaimed, "Hey, you the beggar, leave now, get out!" The beggar, trembling, pulled out a few dirty bills and asked, "I came to buy some sweets. Which ones are the smallest?" The pastry shop owner approached, warmly took out a small, delicate pastry from the display case and handed it to the beggar. He then bent down and said, "Thank you for your purchase. We welcome you to come again." The beggar was astonished and turned to leave the shop, seemingly experiencing such respect for the first time. Respect for others is not about their distinction but a reflection of your own. The grandson of the bakery owner asked, "Grandpa, why did you welcome that dirty beggar?" The owner explained, "Even though he's a beggar, he's also a customer. He came here for the sweets, which we worked hard to make. How could we be worthy of his patronage if we didn't serve him with our own hands?" "But why did you take money from him then?" the grandson inquired. The shop owner replied, "He came here to buy, not to beg. Of course, we must respect him. Not taking his money would have been an insult. We must respect every customer, even if they're a beggar. Everything we have now is because of our customers." After hearing this, the grandson understood and nodded in agreement. This bakery owner was the grandfather of Yoshiaki Tsutsumi, a Japanese business tycoon and billionaire. Tsutsumi once said, "That year, every action my grandfather took towards that beggar deeply impacted me." Years later, Tsutsumi shared this story with his employees to teach them the importance of respecting customers. Respect for others is not merely social courtesy. It stems from understanding, empathy, and deep respect hidden within one's soul. This kind of respect doesn't seek any benefit and isn't influenced by social status or position. It represents the purest form of beauty, simplicity, and is the most valuable form of gratitude. There's a saying, "Open your heart wide and the path before you will broaden." Treat others well, whether they are friends or foes, loved ones or despised. Respecting them is a form of courage and wisdom. 27. The Buddha and the Demon. In a certain region, there was an exceedingly famous painter. One day, he decided to paint the Buddha and a demon, but found himself unable to capture their essence. Despite numerous attempts, he couldn't satisfy his vision for either figure, growing increasingly frustrated. Then, by chance, he encountered someone with an extraordinary aura and was deeply impressed. Determining to use this person as a model, he promised a generous sum in exchange for their participation. The resulting painting caused a sensation across the region. The artist claimed it was his most satisfying work, as the model seemed to embody the Buddha's reincarnation, with a serene and transient quality that moved all who saw it. Ultimately, the painter paid the model a significant sum, fulfilling his promise. This work earned him the nickname the Saint of Painters. Time passed, and the artist prepared to paint a demon, facing another difficult task: where to find a model that encapsulated the essence of evil. After much search and dissatisfaction with various menacing figures, he found the perfect subject in a prison cell. Overjoyed by the rarity of his find, he was surprised when the convict broke down crying, lamenting, "Why did you come to me to paint the Buddha and now return to paint a demon?" Astonished, the artist couldn't reconcile the convict's previous divine demeanor with his current demonic appearance. The convict sorrowfully explained that the wealth from the first modeling job led him to a life of reckless spending and crime, ultimately transforming him from a saint to a sinner. The artist was left speechless, realizing how quickly human nature can change in the face of temptation. The lesson reflects on the perils of material desire. Once ensnared by greed, it's difficult to escape. This story, concluded by the silent contemplation of the Zen master, echoes Buddha's teachings on wise living, revealing the most terrifying thing in the world is human greed. Greed breeds dissatisfaction, unhappiness, and turmoil. 28. Devotion to the path. One spring morning, a renowned and compassionate king visited villages and hamlets, engaging with his people and offering gifts to the poor for the new year. This was also an opportunity for the king to understand the lives and feelings of his subjects. He encouraged everyone to worship the three jewels, practice vegetarianism, engage in acts of kindness, and show filial piety and brotherly harmony. He even waived taxes for those who followed his advice. While everyone appeared to comply, many hid their malicious deeds behind a mask of false morality. It was through this journey that the king gained a deeper insight into human nature, prompting him to seek ways to improve his subjects' moral fiber. In a surprising decree, the king announced, "From now on, anyone practicing Buddhism or vegetarianism will face the death penalty, while those not following Buddhism will enjoy freedom and their duties without interference." Predictably, the insincere quickly reverted to their true ways, no longer needing to pretend. However, one morning, an old, frail man was brought to the royal court. He had defied the king's order and continued his Buddhist devotion, believing that despite his poverty and meager meals, his faith in the three jewels and the Buddha's teachings brought him immense joy. He felt that a life of luxury or even eternal bliss in heaven without the Buddha's teachings would be like living in hell. Boldly, the elderly man declared to the king that he was ready to face execution for his disobedience. The king replied that those willing to repent and follow the new decree would be spared and honored, but those who defied the state's laws would be executed as a warning to others. The elderly man, named Thon Tien Su, respectfully declined the king's offer, stating that forsaking his faith for worldly pleasures would not be worth it. He was ready to face death rather than abandon his devotion to the Buddhist path. Before his execution, Thon Tien Su remained calm and encouraged his son to continue practicing Buddhism and to stay true to his faith, even if it meant his own death. Moved by Thon Tien Su's steadfastness and the wisdom he imparted to his son, the king halted the execution and embraced Thon Tien Su, bringing him into the palace with great care. The king admitted that his harsh decree was a test of faith, and Thon Tien Su was the only one who proved genuine devotion. He asked Thon Tien Su to stay and help him spread Buddhism to awaken the hearts of the people. Following this, the king appointed Thon Tien Su as a national advisor, and the story of their encounter spread widely, inspiring many to return to the Buddhist path. This led to a more harmonious and joyful society. The king was believed to be a previous incarnation of Buddha Shakyamuni. This story teaches us that in times of joy or sorrow, in health or suffering, people turn to Buddhism as a refuge to soothe their pain and find salvation, enlightening their lives in the process. 29. Believe in yourself. In ancient Greece, there was a wise philosopher known only as the Master who shared insights that continue to resonate through time. His most enduring message was simple yet powerful: believe in yourself. The origins of this profound statement are found in a touching tale from his final years. As the Master's life neared its end, he sought to challenge his students in a way that would leave a lasting impact. One day, he called a student to his side and said, "My time is almost up. When I ask you to bring me a new candle, do you grasp the deeper meaning?" "Yes," the student responded, believing he understood. "Your teachings will live on through us." "However," the Master continued, "I am in search of a successor. Not just any successor, but one who combines great intelligence with unwavering faith and courage. I have yet to find such an individual. Can you undertake this quest for me?" "I will," the student pledged, filled with resolve. "I will leave no stone unturned to honor your teachings." The Master merely offered a silent smile. Despite the student's diligent search, facing many trials along the way, all the candidates he presented were gently turned away by the Master. After an exhaustive journey, the student returned to find the Master on his deathbed. The Master took his hand, urging him to sit, and softly said, "You've spared no effort, yet none have surpassed you." "I'll continue my search," the student promised. "I'll scour every corner of the earth to find the one you seek." The Master just smiled. Months passed, and as the Master's end drew near without the appearance of a suitable successor, the student sat by his bedside, overwhelmed with guilt and tears, lamenting his perceived failure. "The only failure is mine," the Master whispered, his voice tinged with sadness. "But you owe an apology to yourself, not to me." He paused, then added with kindness, "You see, you were the one I was looking for all along. Your only shortfall was a lack of self-belief, which blinded you to your own potential." With those final words, the Master passed away, his legacy forever imprinted on the hearts of those who knew him. Indeed, each of us holds unparalleled greatness within. The secret lies in recognizing and embracing our own worth. 30. The story of two Zen masters. There was a Zen master who lived in a humble straw hut on the mountain. One evening, as he returned from his meditation walk, he noticed a thief rummaging through his hut, unable to find anything of value. The master compassionately removed his outer garment and waited outside the door for the thief, wishing not to startle him. As the thief emerged, startled to encounter the Zen master, the master gently said, "Friend, you've come a long way to visit me, and I cannot bear to let you leave empty-handed. Take this robe to keep the cold at bay." Handing his robe to the thief, the master watched him flee down the mountain, feeling deep pity and wishing he could give him the moon to light his way. Days later, as the Zen master greeted the dawn, he found his robe neatly folded at his gate. With a smile, he remarked, "At last, I have given him the moon." Another tale from the Zen monastery of Zen master Xianhai tells of a playful novice monk who struggled with the quiet solitude of monastic life. In the evenings, he would often sneak out to play. The master, aware of his escapades, chose not to reprimand him publicly. One night, as the novice escaped, the master followed quietly, moved the chair the novice used to climb the wall, and sat waiting in its place. When the novice returned, stepping unknowingly onto his master's shoulders, he was mortified. The master gently helped him down, advising caution against the damp night air and to hurry inside to rest. The novice spent a restless night, fearing public reprimand that never came. This act of silent understanding and forgiveness deeply shamed him, deterring him from future escapades and inspiring his dedication to study, eventually leading him to become a respected monk. How would you handle these situations if you were the Zen master? In the first story, many might have fought the thief or raised an alarm. In the second, a typical reaction might be to publicly shame the novice. Yet these responses could lead to violence or deep shame, possibly diverting the novice from his path or fostering resentment. These Zen masters chose a path of compassion and wisdom, transforming potential transgressors through tolerance and understanding. Mistakes are human, and responding with forgiveness rather than condemnation can be a powerful form of guidance. Tolerance is a virtue, akin to the renewing breezes of spring, nurturing growth and renewal. More precious than gold, tolerance is an essential quality in each of us, offering a pathway to peace and understanding. 31. The King and the Blind Man. To read others' thoughts, 3 techniques are essential for mastery. By mastering these, you can effortlessly perceive and understand what people are thinking. Therefore, let me share a Buddhist story that will teach you how to read others' thoughts. In a small village, 2 brothers lived together. The elder brother was blind and spent most of his time at home, while the younger brother was a farmer. Their farm was often damaged by various animals in the fields. Concerned about this issue, the younger brother came up with a solution. He thought, why not have his blind brother help scare the animals away? He could sit in the field and shout if he heard any animals, thus protecting their crops. After considering this, the younger brother built a small hut in the field for his elder brother, explaining, if you hear any animals, just shout and they'll run away, saving our crops. The elder brother agreed to the idea and began his vigil in the field. Whenever he heard animals, he would shout, scaring them away. They continued this practice for many days. Once, a deer ran through, breaking the fence before fleeing. Shortly after, a king chasing the deer arrived at the field. He saw the blind brother and asked if he had seen the deer. The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind and cannot see the deer. However, I can tell you that the animal that left my field is not worth your pursuit. You're wasting your time." The king was surprised by the blind man's statement and questioned how he could make such a claim. The king asked if the blind man was lying, as he claimed to be blind but spoke of judging the value of the deer. The blind man explained, "Your Majesty, the animal you consider a deer was actually a pregnant doe. I have never heard of a king who hunts pregnant does, so I said it wasn't worth your pursuit. You shouldn't waste your time chasing it." The king was amazed by this revelation, unable to comprehend how the blind man could discern that the doe was pregnant. He wondered how a blind person could be so sure that the deer he was chasing was pregnant and confidently relay this information despite his blindness. The king felt the need to verify this and ordered his commander, "Commander, I want the animal captured alive. I need to confirm if it is indeed a pregnant doe. The blind man seemed very sure of this, and I need to investigate. Go and find out if it is pregnant." The king's order was executed, and upon return the commander reported that the blind man was correct. The doe was indeed pregnant. The king was astounded, unable to fathom how the blind man knew about the doe's condition. He had many questions and decided to ask the blind man to uncover the truth. "I may not know if you are truly blind, but I have come to ask you a question. Are you willing to answer my question accurately?" The blind man responded, "Your Majesty, you may ask me anything and I will answer truthfully." The king said, "You are wise and seem to know much. Today, I have called you to find out if my wife is faithful to me." The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, what kind of question is this? Your marriage has lasted many years and now you want to know such things. Why do these questions arise in your mind?" However, the king insisted, "You must answer this question. If you do not provide an answer, I will punish you with the death penalty." Hearing the king's threat, the blind man said, "Your Majesty, if you want an answer to this question, you will have to do something for me." The king asked, "Tell me, what must I do?" The blind man replied, "To do this, your majesty will have to leave your wife alone with me in a room." Initially, the king was angered by this request but eventually agreed and ordered his commander to leave the blind man and the queen alone in the room. At that moment, the blind man expressed his desire to touch the queen. Hearing this, the queen became furious and started beating the blind man with her hands and feet with all her might. Afterward, the blind man escaped and met with the king. The blind man told the king, "Your Majesty, your wife is not faithful." Enraged, the king drew his sword and confronted the queen. He warned her that any deceit would lead to the death penalty and asked if she was faithful. The queen replied, "You may kill me, but I am not faithful." The king was pleased that everything the blind man said was true. Hearing this, the king immediately returned and asked the blind man how he knew his wife was unfaithful. The blind man explained, "Your Majesty, it's actually quite simple. I told your wife that I wanted to touch her, and she became so angry that she began." 32. Wasteland blossoms. In front of Van Son Temple lay a barren wasteland where nothing could grow. Before Master Tam Min took interest, nobody valued this land. Nobody believed it could yield any benefit, nor did anyone imagine it could one day become a beautiful garden. Master Tam Min, blind in both eyes, did not wish for the wasteland to remain barren forever. After taking his vows, and while other monks were engrossed in their scriptures dreaming of becoming abbots, he took up a hoe to till the land. With each stroke, he sowed seeds of flowers. Day after day, whenever he had free time, he would tirelessly work the wasteland, while those who could see deemed him mad. Yet, as others mocked and scoffed at his efforts, the seeds sown by Master Tam Min began to sprout, grow, and flourish. On one spring night, all the buds bloomed simultaneously, and the monks from the temple came out in droves to witness the spectacle. Before them lay a tapestry of stunning flowers, vibrant in color and variety, leaving everyone in awe. Only Master Tam Min remained calm. Being blind, he could not see the beauty of the flowers. His transformation of the wasteland into a garden was intended for others to enjoy, to make people understand that in the eyes of the blind, there truly is no wasteland. 33. The 7 Essentials. Once upon a time, a man sought the advice of a monk, saying, "Please help me. I am deeply unhappy with my life. I don't know what to do." Overwhelmed, he began to cry. The monk offered consolation, saying, "Dear man, tell me what troubles you in detail." The man shared his sad story. "I live in a nearby village and was once the wealthiest there. I always lent money to anyone who asked, but when it was time to repay, excuses were made and I was never paid back. I married a few years ago and never kept secrets from my wife, sharing everything about my past and present. However, she did not respect me. One day, she left after a heated argument, exacerbated when I sought our neighbor's help to mediate. I felt respected to my face but mocked behind my back, becoming a laughingstock. My wealth has dwindled, and my wife has left me. I'm at a loss." The monk reflected for a moment and then said, "My friend, your troubles stem from your naivety. You've shared things you should have kept to yourself. Today, I'll share 7 things you should never reveal to anyone." The man listened intently. First, never share your sorrows and feelings of helplessness. Sharing often validates our weakness in others' eyes, inviting mockery rather than aid. Misconceptions could lead enemies to exploit your vulnerabilities. Second, never discuss past mistakes or future plans. Dwelling on the past can tarnish your image, and sharing future ambitions can dampen your enthusiasm or invite jealousy. Third, keep family matters private. Sharing domestic disputes can invite unwanted interference and exploit familial discord. Fourth, never reveal your strengths and weaknesses. Enemies might counteract your strengths, and others could exploit your vulnerabilities. Fifth, don't disclose your income or savings. This could lead to envy, financial expectations from others, or a lack of respect based on your financial status. Sixth, keep any humiliations to yourself to prevent repeated ridicule or exploitation of your past embarrassments. Lastly, be cautious about sharing details about your friends and enemies, as this sensitive information could be used against you. The monk concluded, "My friend, heed these 7 points and keep them to yourself for a respected and happy life." The man left, tearful yet enlightened, vowing to avoid past mistakes and never share these 7 sensitive details again. So, dear friends, these are 7 sensitive matters best kept private. By doing so, you too can lead a safe, happy, and respected life. 34. No one can save you but yourself. Long ago, there was an individual who sought advice from Buddha on how to control their emotions. Struggling with anger and frustration, they were looking for ways to manage their feelings better. Buddha smiled and invited them to sit down, saying he would share a story. Once, a king ruled a prosperous land. One day, he decided to visit a neighboring kingdom, renowned for its wise ruler. Upon arrival, he was warmly welcomed and treated to a grand feast. During the meal, the king found a fly in his soup. Disturbed, he demanded a new bowl. The neighboring king, noticing this, advised him not to be upset over a minor issue. "It's not the fly that spoils your mood," he said, "but your reaction to it. You have the power to control your emotions. Do not let them control you." The king realized the wisdom in these words and returned to his kingdom, practicing the art of non-reaction to situations that previously provoked him. He found he could remain calm under pressure and make better decisions. The power of non-reaction is an important lesson for all. We often react impulsively to situations, leading to negative consequences. Reacting with anger and frustration can harm our relationships and hinder our ability to make wise decisions. However, it's crucial to understand that non-reaction doesn't mean suppressing our emotions. Emotions are a natural part of the human experience, and it's important to acknowledge them. Instead of reacting impulsively, we should take time to process our emotions and respond more wisely. Elsewhere in the world, a young man named Michael, known for his emotional reactions, decided to take control of his emotions. He practiced mindfulness and meditation, helping him become more aware of his thoughts and feelings. Whenever he found himself in situations that typically triggered negative emotions, he would step back, take a deep breath, and assess the situation more deeply before responding more wisely. Initially, Michael struggled to control his emotions, but with practice, he found it easier. His relationships improved as he ceased arguing and hurting others' feelings, opting instead for calm and thoughtful communication. One day, a friend sought Michael's advice during a tough time. Michael listened and offered words of encouragement. His friend thanked him, admiring how Michael never seemed angry or upset. Michael smiled and shared that he had learned to control his emotions and not let them control him. This powerful tool improved his relationships and well-being. Impressed, his friend asked how to learn this skill. Michael shared his experiences with mindfulness and the power of non-reaction, encouraging his friend to try it themselves. Over time, Michael became known for his calm demeanor and ability to handle difficult situations with ease. He continued practicing mindfulness and the art of non-reaction, finding peace and happiness within. The power of non-reaction is a valuable lesson we can all learn. It requires practice and patience, but the rewards are well worth it. By controlling our emotions, we can improve our relationships, make better decisions, and lead a more fulfilling life. The moral of the stories of the king and Michael teaches us that we have the power to control our emotions. We may not control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. By practicing mindfulness and the art of non-reaction, we can learn to control our emotions and respond more thoughtfully. This powerful tool can improve our relationships, health, and quality of life. So, let's take the time to practice and hone this strong skill, and let it transform our lives for the better. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. You won't be troubled by your anger if you know how to control your emotions. The root of suffering is attachment. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. If we cling to anything, anger, anxiety, or possessions, we cannot be free. Respond with reason, not emotion. Don't dwell in the past or dream of the future. Focus your mind on the present moment. The only way to find true happiness is to stop resisting things and people. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. Everything we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. If you want to change the world, start with yourself. The mind is like water. When it's turbulent, it's difficult to see. When it's calm, everything becomes clear. The tongue is a sharp knife. Purity or pollution depends on oneself. No one can purify another. Stand up and be thankful. If you haven't learned much today, at least you've learned a little. And if you haven't learned a little, at least you haven't gotten ill. And if you've gotten ill, at least you haven't died. So, be thankful. The only real failure in life is not to be true to the best one knows. The past is gone, the future not yet come. There's only one moment for you to live, and that is the present moment. Focus your mind on the present moment. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Every time you fall, no one can save you but yourself. You must walk the path on your own. 35. Silence as an act of conduct. Ancient wisdom teaches that while speaking is a skill, silence is the conduct of the enlightened. Why have the sages throughout history embraced silence? They viewed the world's affairs with detachment, seeking tranquility away from worldly distractions, mirroring the calm surface of a lake. Nguyen Trai retreated to seclusion, becoming one with nature, a neighbor to drifting clouds and verdant mountains. Nguyen Bin Kiem chose isolation, distancing himself from worldly affairs, understanding that wisdom often lies in solitude while folly follows the crowd. The world's noise and life's fervor draw us into an endless vortex, obscuring our spirits with worldly dust and tempting us with material desires. It's only in the aftermath that we realize our souls have been clouded, burdened by the weight of these temptations. In such chaos, only the serene heart of the sage can transcend the madness of the world. The ancients advised that remembering this approach to life and interaction can lead to wiser living. Words spoken are like arrows released. Wounds may heal, but some words cling to us until our final moments. Therefore, refrain from anger, a sentiment well known to us. Yet, in the face of conflict or disappointment, controlling our emotions becomes challenging. Anger clouds wisdom, leading to actions we later regret, sometimes with lifelong consequences. For instance, Genghis Khan, in a moment of rage in the desert, killed his beloved hawk for spilling his water, only to later discover the bird had been protecting him from poisoned water. Had he not acted in anger, he would not have killed his savior. We often justify our anger towards others as seeking their best interests, but this approach only fuels negative emotions. especially resentment. The media often reports tragic outcomes originating from such heated moments. Anger not only harms others but consumes our own well-being. Embracing empathy and understanding, even towards those who oppose us, cultivates good fortune for ourselves and fosters a willingness to aid those who wrong us. Anger closes doors in front of us, while respect opens them. Respect for others, regardless of status, reflects self-respect. You may believe you have the right to control a partner or child, but this can suffocate relationships, leading to discord. Children, though young, deserve respect and will respond positively when their opinions are valued. Similarly, in a professional setting, respect fosters willingness and dedication, whereas its absence can lead to defiance and resentment. Change your perspective. Diverse backgrounds lead to varied experiences and viewpoints. Insisting on your standards can inflame tensions. Understanding and respecting differences can enrich and deepen connections. Continuously monitor your thoughts and emotions. Like wild horses, if not reined in, they can wreak havoc. The enlightened ones practice self-reflection to cultivate virtue. Observing your thoughts can lead to greater self-awareness and meaningful living, avoiding wasteful pursuits. We can only change ourselves, and by doing so, we transform our circumstances. Like a precious gem or a beautiful flower, self-improvement attracts positivity. Silence is golden. While the saying goes, even the wise can become tedious with too much talk, silence does not signify incompetence but offers a chance to learn and respect others. In silence, you observe more, including the unspoken expressions of others, demonstrating humility and earning trust and appreciation. Silence allows for reflection, avoiding hasty words that might cause harm. It also ensures confidentiality, enhancing trustworthiness. Each spoken word can take on different meanings in different contexts, leading to misunderstandings or conflicts. True refinement in moral character comes from restraint and the avoidance of causing harm, leading to harmony and happiness. Great spiritual leaders, through their serene demeanor and silent wisdom, have shown that true understanding and peace come not from words, but from the profound silence of a content heart.